Hi, I'm Angel Kitone. I am an art teacher here at the Anton Art Center. I have been an artist since I was 3, and I recently I've started college. I've been in college for 3 years, and I am currently going into mechanical engineering, but I love art so much that I'm probably minoring in it. What I like to do is mostly dry media. I can do painting and such, but I like to work with graphite and colored pencils, and I also do a bit of digital art with animation and normal just Photoshop and other traditional media on the digital platforms. Today I'm going to be working on a bit of a traditional piece using plain graphite. I'm working on a smoke leopard, where its body comes out of smoke, and I will be using normal graphite pencils. So normally when I start with a plain sketch. I also use a reference when I am drawing. This picture I found off the internet, and I morphed it so I could only get the basics that I need for the eyes and the nose so it looks proportional, but then from there I just start sketching and adding details wherever I see fit. So I personally like starting with the nose, and currently I'm using a B pencil, graphite pencil that is a bit darker because I know I want the nose to be relatively dark, and I usually start with tiny hatch marks, and I have a white sheet of paper so I don't smear any of my already started sketches, though that doesn't really come into play until I start using my darker pencils, because they're the ones who tend to smear more. So I just do tiny hatches around the edges where I know that the most light would be sucked in, the darker areas, and then I go out from there. I normally switch my pencils every once in a while, like if I feel like it's too dark, I'll go back to a normal HB pencil. This is just a normal mechanical pencil, to give myself a bit more direction on where I want it, so I don't have to worry about going too dark too quickly. But I know these areas near the mouth are going to most likely be the darkest parts of the mouth. And I usually just jump around as I go. I don't stay in one spot because then you get sucked into the detail.
So Angel, when people take classes with you, the kids, what do you concentrate on for those folks, those little guys that are coming in?
I try and make sure first they're having fun, and second that they're actually trying to learn something. I will try and focus on one aspect of art, mostly the aspects that I know that I had trouble learning when I was younger, that really made a difference in my art, like shadows and perspectives and recognizing colors. For the past few classes, I've been trying to make sure that the kids pay attention to gradients, because gradients are extremely important in making things realistic. If they only use one color for the whole thing, it looks stagnant and plain. But if they are able to understand that gradients exist and things aren't just one color, they're able to really enhance their own art.
What type of things inspired you?
Animals mostly. I love all sorts of animal. I'm a big earth person, and that's actually how I got started as an artist when I was younger. I read a lot of the Warrior series books, and I saw a lot of people online drawing cats, so I started drawing cats as well. And as I got older, I tried to draw other things from other stories and books that I read and other things that I like. I love to draw fan art for comics, podcasts, books, all sorts of series that I just really take over my life. So when working with the hair, it's relatively difficult, and I tend to leave it like the scruff of the hair on the chin of the tiger. It will be very scruffy, so I try and just do plain wispies as I go. And since it's mostly white, I try and leave a lot of space, because the nice thing about art is that you can leave a lot to the imagination. People are pretty good at figuring out what you mean, even with a few lines.
So these pieces behind you, can you tell us a little about those?
These two pieces are both done in 2 different art classes. One that was mostly focused on rendering, and the other was more of a personal project in an independent study class. For the one to my left, it is a self-portrait. I was asked to do a graphite portrait of myself. I didn't really want to focus on my face, so I found the most interesting pose I could put myself in, and then went ahead and started. When I did this, I was still relatively new to foreshortening, where certain things look bigger the closer to the camera they get, and I felt like I did very well for my first ever try with foreshortening and all the wrinkles. It truly taught me how to pay attention to all the details and get really meticulous, especially in the hair. For this clouded leopard, it was a test of shadows and darkness. We were only allowed to use a dark colored pencil and a light colored pencil, and we had to do everything else on our own. So most of the time I had to focus on the brightest brights. This is also the piece that made me fall in love with dramatic lighting. Even though this lighting isn't dramatic, it's fun to play with how light I can make an area and how dark I can make an area. And since I wasn't able to use my normal graphite, I had to really focus on the amount of pressure I put into my colored pencils. So another thing when I'm working here, I try and sometimes when I'm a little confused, like around the nose, I know from my reference image that the hair here moves up towards a little peak. So I will lightly draw that in, and while I'm working, I follow it to make a better contour so I can understand which direction the lighting will flow. Also, sometimes I draw a little circle to just give me an idea on how I want the lighting to look and what spots that I would be hitting. So with this I just drew, these areas would mostly be in shadow. And I draw small lines following the direction which the fur would go. Normally when I'm really uncertain of an area, I will take an H pencil, the lightest pencils, so I can have an easier time just defining the areas, so I don't have to worry about being too dark and being unable to erase it later on, which is something I try and teach my kids whenever I'm in class. Start light, because you can always go darker. But don't be afraid of going darker, because if you go too light, then everything's going to look flat. The main idea of art the main focus of art is understanding shadows. That's what makes things realistic, because that's how we differentiate what's one thing, what's another. Like right here, there's barely any shadow, so I would probably take a darker pencil so I can differentiate where the mouth starts and the muzzle, the top part of the muzzle is. The difference between light usually is what defines what anything is. And the areas where I'm leaving a lot more light is usually parts where a lot of light next to a lot of darkness are usually places that are relatively shiny, like the eye, like near the tear ducts and such, where it would be a little wet, so light would reflect rather easily across. Lately I've been getting into drawing things with smoke. So I just very lightly do shapes on the bottom half. Since smoke is a different texture than the fur, I'm trying to not copy the scribbles that I did here and do more rounded shapes to make it a little bit more billowy. I personally love to draw fantasy creatures and animals in general. They are what started me on this path of art, and whenever I truly don't know what to draw, I take from nature, because it is one of my favorite things in the world.